Welcome, everyone. I'm Laurie, your host, the host of Work It podcast, where EQ meets IQ, training workplace success. Today marks our 6th podcast, and we have a special guest who shares many of the same passions I do for individuals achieving workplace success. Today's podcast is also sponsored by workitcareers.com. And for more information on how you can discover and awaken your true career path, please visit that website. So today I welcome Karen Thomas, who has spent many, many years helping individuals achieve workplace success through etiquette training. So welcome, Karen.
Thank you for having me, Laurie. It's an honor, and I'm glad to be podcasting with you today.
Yeah, I'm excited. So much of what I do is to help people achieve a career path that makes sense for them. And it doesn't matter the age. So I work with children as young as 10 and adults as older, even near retirement. So following you over the last 4 years, I've learned a lot about how things can run a lot smoother, not only at home, but also in the interviewing arena and helping kids prepare for college.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how you go about working with the students and what kind of students do you work with?
Okay. Well, basically, I work with students mostly in the college arena, from there and on up through businesses. And what we do is we like to look at the core values of what a person has. Things like personal branding, what they believe in, and things like that. And personality does jump in on that line there. And when we work with them, we try to make sure that we make it so they're comfortable in their own skin with learning certain etiquette rules and what's acceptable in the business arena. And it's really nice because everybody is individual, everybody is unique. But again, if you follow rules of etiquette, which basically boils down to this: respect for self and others. It really doesn't matter what fork you use. When you say the word etiquette, a lot of times people feel, oh, pinky's out, or it means something about tea. Or,
I'm standing straighter right now, right? Karen, just being in your presence.
Right? But I mean, people have this, I don't know if I want to say an aversion to the word etiquette or what it stands for, what it means, but there is an etiquette for everything out there. But let me say this: as long as you're respecting yourself and others' company, you have good etiquette. So it doesn't matter what fork or knife you use. So we try to take that and put that together with everything that has to do with interviewing for jobs, right, or dining out with clients and business and sales.
Awesome. Well, today I need to let you know that I'm not typically a rule follower. So following rules is something that I can violate, but I'll never violate respecting somebody.
Yes.
So I'm definitely a people person. Yes. And a people pleaser.
Yes.
And I think that probably prevents me from getting into more severe trouble. I'm a risk taker.
But it's good in that fact because, I agree with you on that. I don't follow every single rule. I try to get the most direct path to success. And it doesn't mean there has to be, let's say, 10 steps. There could be, you could outline 10 steps for that, but maybe that's the path that you took. I might have taken the 8-step path. You know what I mean? And it's okay. So, again, going back to personality, it's different for everyone. Everyone has their own personality, and the way they achieve something is different from the way I perceive it, achieve it, or do things.
So when you look at parenting children today, we hear stories of parenting children of yesterday where etiquette was definitely on the forefront.
Yes.
Dinner had etiquette. Communication with your parents had etiquette. Mm-hmm. Communication with your teachers had etiquette. Mm-hmm. Times have changed.
Unfortunately, I have to agree. Oh, but I have a job because of that. So it's not a bad thing. But, Laurie, it is one of those things that it's evolved with time. Society has changed drastically over the last 20, 30 years. I remember sitting down to a formal dinner at the holidays. I remember certain things that we followed, like I was taught how to set a table, where are the forks and spoons, things like that. And I just think that now over the last so many years that society has changed. There's just not enough time for that. And we're picking and choosing what important things parents need to, do with their children. There's packed schedules. Two parents are working, or it's a single parent home, or, there's so many factors that go into it. So, it's not to say it's a bad thing, but I think that we have to make a conscious effort to choose to put civility and etiquette in our lives.
Right.
And it's not always easy. So, that's why I do what I do, to bring out certain manners, the power of polite, certain things like that, where, it makes it easy for parents to instill these in their children, or not even that. College, maybe the college kids, that a lot of them that I deal with have not even heard of these, etiquette rules
Right.
for society, or going, to get their first job.
Sure.
So, it's nothing new. Times have changed since Emily Post back in 1920 came out with all of these etiquette rules. Things have changed quite a bit, and they are keeping up with society. But again, it's always good, like you said, no matter what your personality, as long as you're respecting and you're being civil, you'll get very, very far in life.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I know when I advise students on getting their first jobs, a lot of them, or getting a transitional job, one of the major things that I bring up is smiling.
Yes.
If you don't have anything to say, just smile, because it's going to change the whole attitude of the interview.
Yes.
So, along with that firm handshake from the start,
Yes.
you need to exhibit some sort of confidence. And that smile can sometimes, or many times, relax the interviewer, because they may be just as nervous as you are.
Right.
So definitely smiling is my advice I give them.
Absolutely. And I agree too, because it changes the tone of the conversation, changes the tone of the room, the people that you're working with. And, if you go in and you see somebody, of course you're nervous. Everyone's nervous with an interview. I mean, it's just a natural thing. However, if you go in smiling and thinking confidently by sitting up straight in the chair, not slumping, like you said, firm handshake, making eye contact with the people you're talking to, the people that you're shaking hands with, smiling, that right there sets the whole stage for success in an interview. Regardless of what came out of your mouth, you may think that you bombed the interview, or you didn't answer this correctly, or, something. But again, what you put out there and what you exude oftentimes is a great reflection upon the person that you are, and will get you the job.
Absolutely. So, I mentioned that some interviewers are just as nervous as the interviewee. And, I always say to the interviewee, the student, that you're interviewing this person as well as them interviewing you.
Yes.
So it's important to know the atmosphere that you'll be working in, take note of it. And some students are more emotionally intelligent than others. So they can see it right on, or they feel it right away. So again, we're doing this podcast to really educate everyone that etiquette is a lot to do with your personality.
Yes.
And it can be tailored as long as the end result is respect.
Right.
Like Karen said, respect is definitely a huge goal to achieve. So as these students that struggle with eye contact, because I have a lot of students that struggle with a few things, spelling and eye contact, handshakes, I would say 50-50 in what I'm seeing. But they're always looking down, whether it's because they're so accustomed to texting. But,
yes.
It's amazing. It's amazing on that. So when they do enter the work world, yes, you still need cell phones in the workplace, because that they do get information, minute by minute from their employers. But when you get sucked into other things, social media, texting friends, it crosses the line.
Right.
So what are your recommendations that you have? Because you're working with college students that are just about there.
Yes. Well, I give them a basic outline of what's appropriate and what is not appropriate. And when I say that, I say that in a broad context, because there are times that, like you said, that you're going to need it, you're going to have it, and it's okay. But again, follow the policies of your workplace. And I always tell my college students that, but I tell them, do not have it be a crutch. Do not use your cell phone as a crutch. Like you feel like you have to have it on your person or, in your pocket or on your desk or on the table or whatever you're doing. Make sure that again, you could have it on your person, but don't make it visible. Don't make that the main focus of whatever you're doing, whatever task or job or whatever. So I tell them for an interview, do not have it out at all. I tell them to take it and to put it in your pocket, in your bag, somewhere. And if you have it on your person, hide it. So in other words, like let's say you have your folder, put it down where it can't be seen, place the folder over it. Never put it on the interview table, and don't make that the focus, because right there, that will give off the impression that that's more important than the task at hand, which would be the interview. So, this is something that I think a lot of young people can't grasp. When we were growing up, we didn't have cell phones. And so we played out in the yard and we did things, just certain things that we did back then because we didn't have this technology. So again, it's a blessing and a curse, technology. It's a blessing that we have it for certain things, but it can also be a curse and hinder us in things like a job interview or actually at our job or in school or things like that. So there's a time and a place for everything. And I make sure that I go through the different etiquette rules about cell phone use and storage and what have you. Like if you're out to dinner with a client, it shouldn't be on the table, and just various things like that. And, they're easy to follow. They're not so outrageous, but again, I think they need to be brought to the forefront just so they're in the, person's mind, so they are respectful.
So as you educate the college students, they enter a work world where etiquette is probably not followed to the T as well.
At all.
So I know I've been to quite a few meetings where, yeah.
That's all you have to say. Yeah.
So having business etiquette in, do you work at all with corporations?
Yes, I do. I do trainings for many businesses, a lot of financial institutions. And what's nice about that is it's bringing back core values, which are sometimes either not introduced at all, or there really wasn't time for, maybe in their training or, in their years with the company. And, what I love doing is I have a training coming up in the next couple of weeks. And the way that the client worded it to me was he wanted a mini charm school for his company. And I said, well, absolutely. I said, what are you looking for? So we went over our different points that we're going to talk about. And, he says, I just want them to feel comfortable in their own skin, but I want you to reinforce that these are certain things that they need to be doing that are expected in the business world. He says, a lot of them are young. He says, so they think that certain, things are okay to do and they're not. He says, so hearing from, an expert that will say to them this, this, and this, and getting it across. And it goes even back to kids, because a lot of times I'll get calls from parents who will say to me, I've told my kid, don't do this or don't do that. And, I said, what? You could tell them 100 times. When they hear it from somebody else is the time that they're going to listen and remember it. So again, and it works too with sometimes the workplaces. The boss can say this, this, and this, but sometimes when they bring in professional development and it's brought to the forefront by someone else, they take it a little more seriously.
And I think that spins off the etiquette by personality type, because the personality type that exists in your home that's trying to bring structure to you and etiquette may not be as heard as a different personality.
Yes.
A friend's parent, a teacher, a neighbor. So you're bringing up a good point. And I think it just reinforces my belief that etiquette can be achieved, but it needs to be communicated and trained maybe a little bit differently per personality style.
Yes.
Let's talk about these introverted students that do have a hard time making eye contact. They're listening. They're great listeners, by the way.
Yes.
Introverted students are the most amazing listeners, but they're not apt to do everything that is expected of them as far as firm handshake and eye contact and answering questions more so than a yes or a no.
Right.
Open-ended questions they struggle with. So what advice would you give a parent who is feeling like they're nagging their son? Well, I'm going to pick on the boys this time.
Right.
Picking on the boys, that they're not saying please, thank you. Maybe they're not sending a thank you note because they've received birthday money, things like that.
Well, it's like you said, everybody is different and everyone is unique. So the way that they process information, so I could say to you and I could say to somebody, even your husband, okay, if I were sitting down with both of you doing a class, I could say these are the etiquette rules. And the way each of you interpret what I'm saying is different. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
no two people are alike. And so you have to take that into account when you're talking to them or when you're trying to teach them. So what I do with the introverts, that I work with, again, who just maybe tend to look at the floor a little bit more, or, like you said, don't make eye contact, is to try to stress the importance of these little things that can make a difference. And if they start to believe it, even if they do it, they can modify it. So it can be modified. So it's not like they have to sit and totally stare the entire time, but they should at least make contact when they're shaking hands. So I would modify it from, at least when you're shaking hands, make eye contact. Then maybe if you'd like to look down at your resume, your paper, or what have you, and then look up again, maybe that's a way for them. And again, everybody does things differently. So, with that, it can be modified as long as the rules remain the same. They can just be modified to the personality style.
Or use the neighbor to communicate what you need to achieve with your
right. And they do. And I laugh because, again, so many times I get the call from the parents like, my kids are just horrible in eating, and we go to restaurants and they just don't want to listen. And I'll do a restaurant tutorial with them, and they come back from it. And the parents are like, wow, like, what did you do? Did you beat them? Or, what did you do? Why won't they listen? And it's not the person or the parent, but it's just that it's their persona, that it's my parent.
Right.
And they tend to listen to somebody on the outside more so than they do the parent. I'm just, oh, Ma, you're just saying that, or,
Yeah.
So it does work.
So I think we're going to agree on this session 1 of Etiquette by Personality Style. Using other people that have influence over your children is a wonderful idea.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful vehicle to get them to understand. And, whatever works. Maybe, the little Johnny listens to his brother better than he does his father, or somebody, a teacher or a mentor or somebody, maybe a coach. So it's always good to reach out to those people and say, hey, this is what we're working with, or, he has trouble with at home, this, how about, and, so again, it's always good as long as the end result is civility and respect, it's all good.
So kind of bringing it back to the interview, there's many students that are driven by money.
Yes.
I'm finding out of my students, there's quite a few driven by money. So aligning them to a passionate job that pays well is my goal.
Mm-hmm.
Because the last thing I want to do is see a student chase money and be miserable in their job, because it only ends on a bad note with health issues and relationship issues. And they tend to stay in job way longer than they need to because they've gotten accustomed to that salary.
Yes.
So, that interview process, when I mentioned earlier that it's important that you interview the job itself as well as them interviewing you.
Yes.
Because if it's not a fit and it doesn't feel right from the beginning, you need to go to a different interview.
Right. And I always tell these students too that are prepping for an interview, have maybe, and again, even on the introverted side, have at least 2 questions that you're going to ask the interviewer. Okay. And it can be, and it shouldn't be, hey, what's the salary? That should never be the first thing.
Correct.
But I laugh at that. I make sure that I say that because that's sometimes like, they feel like that's the most important to them. So we get them off that path. But again, I always say, do a little research on the company. Let's say it's XYZ widget company and you have an interview and this is really where you want to work. So you think, and this and that. Do a little research and then ask a question about what you've researched. That will do 2 things. First of all, it will show your interest in that company by showing that you did research or you know a little bit about it. When you walk in there and you know nothing about this company and when they say, do you have any questions? You're like, no, I'm fine. It reflects poorly on the interviewee. Right. So, I always tell them, prepare something, at least 1 or 2. And then, of course, there's other, students who on the opposite end, extroverted, are like, well, I've prepared a list. And I say, no, we have to pare that down. Yeah. They come out with this big roll,
Yeah, we didn't talk about the extroverted students
we'll
yet.
do
That's
that
the next session.
But, again, in that shows interest and it shows that the person is really interested in the job. And it also highlights their communication skills. Mm-hmm. So, and that's important for the interviewer to see as well.
With introverted students, I, highly recommend through my classes that, if you're not born to speak verbally, applying for a job that requires you to speak often verbally.
Yes.
that pays well is probably not going to end well.
Right.
So that's one thing that I try to catch early so that, they're more on a behind the scenes job, paying well, but they're actually not stressing themselves out during the day. Because that interview is very stressful for an introverted person.
It is. And, that's one of the things that I love about what you do is because you bring these qualities or these notations to the forefront to that person. Mm-hmm. And again, your comment about, a lot of times they're money driven, which I think in society, it's just a societal thing now. It's like, the more money, the bigger, the better, got to have it yesterday. And so by bringing these out with the sessions that you do with these kids and adults, but it brings that out. So that's something else to think about. You know what I mean? Because like you said, it usually doesn't end up well if it's not a good match. So they went there for, let's say, a year or two, and they find by the second year, they're just burnt out. It's not for them.
Or they got fired.
Or they got let go, right? That it's not good. And then it puts them in a worse position. So right. I think what you do just really brings out into the forefront what people need to know about, getting a job or what they're meant to be doing. Mm-hmm. So, it's a huge thing now with these types of studies and things that you do with them. It's just so good because people can really get a good sense of where they should be. And I highly recommend what you do for everybody and anybody, like you said, from the young all the way up through, if you're transitioning, or even somebody who might be thinking about taking on an entrepreneurial role.
So that's going to be session 3.
I know, right?
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
So seeing how you and I have been doing this for years.
We can talk about a lot of things. So today we're talking about just general interviewing skills and obviously interviewing by personality style. And, if you're going for a behind the scenes job, more than likely you're going to be interviewing with somebody who is also introverted. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, that could be a problem. So we together, Karen and I, we have the same passion, but we're just supplying a different service. Right. And both are needed in today's world to be successful. And we together, we strongly encourage you to take a look at Karen's website. So what's your website?
My website is ctetiquette.com. And there you'll find all kinds of information about what types of things I teach, different things that people can find out. And if anyone has a passion for etiquette, I have a new program out that they can, become a certified children's trainer. Wonderful. So, that's something there too, but maybe they should take your test first to see if that's in path with, and then they can, right?
Absolutely. I'm kind of like at the gate point. So starting with Work It and then being able to branch off and get certified in all these different things that are related to helping children understand etiquette at a younger age. Because we all know that learning things at a younger age, it tends to stay with you longer.
Yes. It's like imprinted in your brain, and you remember these things. When I teach a children's class, I specifically say, some of these things I'm telling you now, and even in my college classes, like some of the things I'm telling you now, you will hear it, you probably will retain it somewhere, but maybe it won't come back to you for a year or two, or when it is prevalent to what you're doing. And all of a sudden the light bulb is going to go off and you say, oh, I remember I took an etiquette class and she said XYZ. I said, and you will remember it. I said, so remember my face when you do that this was worthwhile. And again, it doesn't have to go off. The bell doesn't have to go off right away. But if you take in, simple tips and remember them, they will come in handy.
Wonderful. Well, Karen actually said, remember my face. And eventually, we're hoping by the session 2, we're going to actually figure out how to do a video podcast so that you can kind of demonstrate expressions, movements that are related to successfully landing jobs.
Yes.
And what not to do and what to do.
That.
Yeah.
Yes,
we're going to have fun with that. We're going to need a big screen for that.
That's it.
So I thank you so much for being my guest today. And I look forward to scheduling session 2 when we talk about the extroverted, overachieving, overstage presence
person, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. It was my honor, and I look forward to doing more. So thank you, Laurie.
All right. So say your website one more time.
Okay. My website is etiquette.com.
And thank you so much. And again, this is Laurie. I'm looking forward to next week's podcast. So every Monday you can hear us here, and the website to catch all repeat podcasts are workitcareers.com.